Adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda December 1st?
I'd like to make a motion.
Councilor Ray,
Okay, yes, go ahead.
I'd like to ask that Bob Deeks and the other representatives be allowed to speak at 7:30 so they can leave early. They have another meeting right after this, and one of the gentlemen is on Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you. That will be done.
Thank you.
I also have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so 11.1 is the Citizens Advisory Committee. There's a B, which is a December 1st meeting report.
Can I get a?
Your worship,
Yes.
there's also item 3.1, Two Rivers Community Service Society delegation. That's a late item as well. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Everyone. I just have them under delegations. Okay, can I get, all in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
All right,
So we're going on to delegations. Two Rivers Group. Naomi?
I think your worship, the motion that Councillor Gray made there with the amendment of, or
Yeah.
the late items was to have the building step code presentation first.
Okay, that's fine. I thought it was at 7:30, but they can go right now. We'll change that.
I think it was just before 7:30.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to 12.4. And building step code presentation. Bob Deeks has the floor.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the building step code. I've got two colleagues who are here on the call. One, David Arnott from Stark Architecture, and Andy Oding from Building Knowledge. And so I can certainly give I guess a cut down presentation on what I spoke to the Citizens Advisory Council on earlier this afternoon. And then I thought, you know, what we could also do is talk to the council a little bit more about what a net zero community might look like. You know, what considerations you might give to how you define net zero, whether we're looking at net zero energy, or whether you might consider looking a little more down the road to net zero carbon, which is really where we're heading provincially in the 2030 timeline and federally by 2050. You know, one strategy that the community might consider in trying to create a coordinated approach to a low carbon energy efficiency rebuild would be using an integrated design process or integrated project delivery method. And that's specifically what Andy Oding can speak to, as well as some specific points around, you know, what does a net zero community look like? What are some of the planning strategies that you might want to consider on that? And David can talk a little bit about if you wanted to use that integrated approach, not only in terms of the development of the net zero concept, but also in terms of a design strategy that might maintain the form and character of the heritage nature of the community that you had, but trying to bring some efficiencies, both in terms of cost and timelines for, you know, a comprehensive rebuilding plan. You know, I certainly understand from conversations that I've had with Robert and Lillian that, you know, there is not yet consensus around, you know, how the village might move forward as a group in terms of its rebuilding plan. You know, where does the village want to land, you know, specifically in step code, talking about your building bylaw, you know, where do you want to land within that? And I am somewhat aware that there has been some discussion around the concept of net zero community. So I think, we can inform you a little bit more on what that might include, and what are some of the things that you would like to consider starting to think about today. Because of course, I think for everyone, and noticing there's quite a few people on the call, I think time is obviously going to be of the essence in all of this. And I can also give you a brief update. I did take the opportunity to engage with some colleagues at BC Hydro around some of the things that would be considered, whether it's a net zero community. I know there was some discussion of undergrounding, and what some of the considerations might need to be around the design intent if there was some consideration of going down that pathway. So, and maybe just a little feedback from council, is it more important to speak about the concept of a net zero community, or would you rather hear a more detailed review of step code right now?
Ian, you have a preference? No. Lily, do you have a preference?
Well, I've been talking with Bob, so I think I might be a little bit more up on it than you guys are. So I would suggest, just based on what I learned from him, that you start with the step code, just to get the basic idea of where the province and everything is moving and where we would have to be starting next year, and go from there.
Oh, all right.
If we can cover as much ground as possible, it would be great. I would suggest you guys take down notes, because there's a lot of information coming.
All right, step code. So starting in around 2016, 2015, maybe I'll give you a bit of my background. I was on the original committee that developed the step code for, well, part 9 in the building code, which is houses specifically, and smaller commercial buildings. And I currently sit as the co-vice chair for the step code council for the province. I also sit on the standing committee for energy efficiency with Codes Canada, and am the past chair, as is Andy Oding, of the Canadian Home Builders Net Zero Council. So step code today, right now, it's voluntary for municipalities across the province to engage with the step code, typically up to about step 3. And there are about 55 municipalities in the province that represent close to 80% of new construction that are implementing step code, somewhere between step 1 and step 4, and in some very, very rare cases, step 5. And so what is the step code? So the province introduced energy efficiency requirements in the building code in 2010 without really any engagement of municipal governments or the building sector. And what they discovered fairly quickly is that the energy efficiency outcomes that they had anticipated in that prescriptive code-based approach to improving energy efficiency weren't showing up when they actually tested houses when they were completed. And they also recognized very, very quickly that there was an enormous amount of confusion, not only from the builders, but also from municipalities and the authority that had jurisdiction on this prescriptive approach to trying to improve energy efficiency in houses. There's 2 paths that the industry can take today towards building houses, particularly when we consider energy efficiency. One is what I referred to as prescriptive, which is essentially a list of things that you must do. There's very little flexibility on it. You do these things, and there is an expectation that if you do them well, that you will achieve a certain outcome. Of course, it became more and more complicated as we introduced energy efficiency into the code. And what we determined was that by simply following this prescriptive pathway, we were not getting the outcomes that were anticipated, as I noted. And so the other approach to this is what is referred to as a performance path approach. And in this way, there are many different options that a builder and a homeowner can choose And these options are then input into a software system called Hot 2000 that analyzes the choices that you're making around insulation and air tightness and windows and your mechanical systems, a type of hot water system that you have. And it produces a result that tells you essentially, where that building will fit into on the spectrum of energy efficiency. And so in British Columbia today, the STEP code has chosen to follow that performance-based approach. So one of the principal changes that you will understand once STEP code becomes enacted with in regulation in December of 2022, when every municipality in the province will be required to go to step 3, is that every home or every building that is constructed will need the services of an energy advisor. And the energy advisor is the person who builds that energy model around the design of your house and determines whether it complies to the step code level that the municipality has engaged with or not. And then the homeowner and the builder and the energy advisor can work together to optimize the design of the house to either reduce cost if they are overshooting their target, or to look at more effective ways to achieve the standard if they've missed it. And of course, this work needs to be done during the design phase so that when the homeowner and builder apply for a building permit, they can also show a compliance document that identifies that that house or that building complies with whatever level of the step code is required by the municipality or the authority having jurisdiction. So today, the step code is voluntary. So there are numerous municipalities within the province that are still using the energy code from 2010. It is business as usual. As I noted, about 55 municipalities across the province have engaged in that step code, anywhere from step 1 to step 5. Briefly, step 1 requires that you simply use the energy code from 2010, but you have to follow a performance path. So you're no longer looking at a prescriptive, thou must do all these things. You're following that performance path with the services of an energy advisor. There is no specific requirement that you need to meet other than that you're following the performance path. So it doesn't matter in step 1 what the performance level of the house is. It's just that you follow the performance path. And the idea behind that is to educate the communities, the builders, the authority having jurisdiction on how a performance-based approach works to designing and building houses, and introduce people to air tightness testing. Because one of the key aspects of following a performance-based approach is that you need to do what we call a blower door test, and you need to test the house for air tightness. Personally, the easiest way, two of the easiest ways to achieve higher levels of the step code are really airtight buildings with good ventilation systems and really good windows. So, we have this stepped approach. We have some communities that have engaged with step 1, some with step 2, some with step 3, and so on and so forth. To give you, a bit of a context of what does step 3 mean, step 3 is intended to be approximately 20% more energy efficient than the 2010 building code. Also recognizing that the code has been changing for many, many years. And so if we compare to step 3 house today to say a home that was built in 1990 or 1980 or 1970, it's very possibly that a step code 3 house today could be 60 or 70% more energy efficient than that 1970s house. So, it is a moving target. What else does the step code do? We really tend to focus in very narrowly on the step code being all about energy efficiency. And energy efficiency absolutely has, the benefit of both reducing energy and reducing the operational cost of a house. And it also has additional benefits of, improving the thermal comfort of the house, so that in the wintertime, your house is evenly warm in every room. And in the summertime, it's an easier proposition to keep that house cool, and you can keep the house cool in all the rooms of the house. It's also going to improve indoor air quality because it comes with a codified requirement for proper ventilation, where you have to exchange the stale air within the house with fresh air that's coming in from outside. And, one of the added benefits of the step code is then you can get some heat recovery components so that as you exhaust that conditioned air outside, you're recovering some of that energy from that exhausted air to help temper the air that comes back in. Andy's just thrown up a slide here that just shows the tiered approach. And of course, step one, no, I may have gotten tripped up here. Step three, 45% more energy efficient. Step two, Andy, is Andy unmuted?
Yes. Hello.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I think I'll leave the percentage of improvements. We're following a steadily improved path. Is this for part 3 buildings?
This is part 9.
Part 9, sorry.
Yeah.
It's a graduated process of steadily improving the energy efficiency of houses. And as I noted, the province is targeting to mandate step 3 province-wide in December of 2022. And so as a community, you have the opportunity now to choose any of the steps up to step 3 as you introduce a new building bylaw in 2022. And then, of course, in December of 2022, the province will mandate step 3. And so I think that's generally a brief overview of the step code in British Columbia, and certainly happy to take any questions on that anybody might have.
I'll just jump in. This is Andy, working with Bob. We've worked with a number of municipalities and large developers on trying to achieve this upper tier, because we are headed towards the end game, which is net zero ready. Our neighbors south of the border, believe it or not, regardless of their political situation, actually have a code that is advanced of us. Their 2021 International Energy Code that the US has is actually basically net zero ready. So we are playing catch up. I did have a couple slides, Bob, just to share if there's time around why we would say be careful of focusing on just the energy code alone when you are designing a community. We are already finding out at the national level, the international level, that focusing on energy efficiency alone and carbon can result in very unhealthy communities. And so that's why Bob has brought up the thought of approaching this through what's called the integrated design approach. It's something that the federal government of Canada is jumping in to help support the design and development of communities across Canada. And they're also using it in redesigning the housing on the Canadian Forces Housing Authority and the bases. So I don't know if there's time to get into that. I've got about a 5-minute presentation I can just run through if it's of interest.
Go ahead.
Pardon?
I said, go ahead.
All righty. Okay, so the gist is, like Bob said, we are headed towards net zero ready. Regardless of what tier you land on, the end game is net zero ready. It's a house, it's a community that has reduced the amount of energy they're using to the point that they potentially can create what they need at the I'm going to say the site level. We have been involved, as Bob, many others. There's a lot of these net zero communities out there right now, and they're still learning a lot of really, really important lessons. One of the lessons is that if you focus alone on getting to energy efficiency, it doesn't mean that you end up with a healthy home. They are two different opposed details. I'll give you an idea. How many of you remember the Canadian Housing Improvement Program from the 1970s? We had an oil embargo. We put insulation in attics across Canada, and within a year and a half, we had the worst attic rain and mold issues we'd ever had as a nation. We learned that if you're going to insulate, you have to also make it airtight. We 2 years later removed the insulation and we put in air barriers. Within 3 years, we had carbon monoxide poisoning because we were making buildings tight. We learned we need ventilation. And what we're finding out at the national level is it's great to get to tier 5, but you need to do it holistically. So the challenge for you folks and looking at the redevelopment of this community is your goal isn't just energy, it's the community as a system. It needs to be resilient. It needs to stay lit when the grid goes down. It needs to be resistant to a lot of the climate change things that we're seeing. And you have to design these homes for people. At the end of the day, it's people that have to live in these homes. Here's a great example. If we get it wrong, this is what happens. Dean of Architecture, Ted Kessick, University of Toronto, says, we have to design complicated grids and complicated mechanical systems because we can't seem to get the envelope right. So it starts with rational enclosure design, then you do rational mechanicals, then you do rational renewables, and under that you bring the utilities in to design a really good grid that can resist the impact of climate change. You don't start with the grid first. And oftentimes we get it wrong. So again, some of the other things we're learning is when you look at energy, and already BC and the Ministry of Housing there is aware of this, is that all we're talking about right now with energy is operational carbon. And that's the carbon that comes from the operating of these homes. And that's fine to reduce that. The problem is the carbon that is in the materials is equal to the carbon you're going to produce over many years. And the problem is we're starting to see that you could build a passive, hyper efficient community, but the community and home would need to operate for 100 to 200 years to offset the carbon that was in the materials. So again, there needs to be a balanced approach. And there's actually been a cautionary paper published by the government of Canada that we need to be careful about these higher tiers, that if we're going to try to achieve extreme energy efficiency, we also have to look at the materials we're using, or we could actually shove carbon emissions up rather than pushing them down. So here's the thing. Where does IDP come in? Well, number one, how do you keep everybody engaged? How do you make sure that the community is not only efficient, but it's resilient? You get the stakeholders involved, you learn lessons so that you don't have to learn the unintended consequences that others have learned. And that's through this thing called a community scale integrated design process. It's not a new thing. IDP was actually, believe it or not, invented by Canadians back in the 1990s. Busby Perkins out of, I believe it was Vancouver, coined the term in the C2000 program. And this process, what Bob's trying to bring to the table is that this process is now being used at the community scale to develop whole communities. And the beauty of integrated design is you actually start out by listening to the people who are going to live in the community. And you listen to the stakeholders during the discovery, and then you go away and find solutions and bring them back to the entire stakeholder group. We have seen charrettes and IDP processes take place where the community, the members of the community, the stakeholder group, the utilities, the builders came out of a 2 or 3 day exercise and said, we got more done in 2 to 3 days than we would have gotten done in 2 years through the traditional process. So I'll just leave it at that if that's okay, and glad to provide more presentations on this in the future if it's of interest.
And thanks, Andy. We do have David Arnott from Stark Architecture here, and David could talk a little bit about some of the strategies that could be used not only to build energy efficient houses, but also possibly a design strategy to consider, and how you might bring some level of prefabrication to what in the end would look like very traditional houses. So I'll turn it over to David here.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for letting us speak. It's David from Stark Architecture out in Squamish. Yeah, I think it's actually very easy to create this kind of heritage style with these higher levels of energy performance. One possibility that we've worked with communities before is to sort of really work with the community to discover what floor plans typically work for people. Certainly in Squamish, there's a couple of typical houses that seem to be repeated from the 80s and 90s that everyone quite enjoys. You could create 3 to 5 different models of homes, and then these could be built off-site, so prefabricated construction. It's not modular. It's off-site, customized panels that all arrive on site and are erected in 4 to 6 days. They're fully insulated, taped, membraned, ready to have the siding on. And then each owner can choose the siding, the colors, the windows, all this sort of stuff. So you'll actually get a community that's built up with lots of different styles. A panelized method really helps you with your air tightness, which Bob and Andrew have talked about there. And then the sort of massive amounts of insulation that you can get in. But really for this community, I would see the major benefit just being speed. You can create a lot of these products offsite, deliver and have them installed very quick. You're not relying on huge amounts of labor. So yeah, you could form design strategies and design guidelines to help assist with creating these models. Yeah, it still sounds, yeah, don't have much more.
Thanks, David. Questions?
I know the answer to this, but the step code, what does it have to do with fire resiliency of your house or a prospective house?
Big fat zero.
Thank you.
But there are, there's great off-the-shelf products that we build with every day that would fire smart, everybody's houses and fire smart the community. So that's not a challenging outcome to achieve.
I think that's one thing.
After seeing the fire, I tend to disagree with you. The fire
What's that?
I said, after seeing the fire go through Lytton.
Yeah, I mean, recognize, sorry.
Resiliency will be a huge task.
And I mean, there's different strategies you can use. And of course, there's a limit to, what fire smarting a building can withstand. And absolutely appreciate that. But there are non-combustible materials that are used every day that can be effective in many ways. Andy?
And that's, I actually, that question to me is the perfect question because even the Canadian building codes are in conflict with one another. Bob and I both sit on committees. The fire codes are in conflict with the energy codes. The energy codes are in conflict with the electrical codes. And those are the kind of things that will not get sorted out if it's just code-based traditional design. Those are the kind of things that get sorted out through that integrated design process. There's fire safety rules that would say close off the soffits of buildings. Great. However, if you do that, you disengage the ventilation capacity of those roofs. So then maybe we need to go to non-vented roofs, which is what David can design for us. But that's an absolute perfect question because the resilient community ultimately is really what you want in the face of what we're all facing at this point in time. And it won't just be fire. It's going to be everything else, the floods and so on and so forth. So.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this for us. How long would it take to put together a community-led integrated design process? And what kind of results could we see as far as preparing to build for next year?
Andy, that's to you.
Well, we would say, from that point, it's something it could be pulled together with the resources, the interest that you have there in BC. And you're very fortunate to have folks at BC Hydro and BC Housing that already get this. I think you could pull something together in probably the first quarter or two of next year. An IDP, community scale IDP does take planning. It would need probably a first discovery session, about a month for the teams to do their work, and then another day back in with community members showing the potential solutions. And out of that day comes a report, and it sets the table for the design development by David or the other team. So, talking through it, I think it would probably be about a month and a half process, and you could probably have that process done by the middle of next year or earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So-
for everyone, time is of the essence, and so trying to get the ball rolling obviously is important. Sorry, Lillian, I cut you off there.
That's okay. So where would that leave us as far as beginning construction goes? I guess what I'm trying to say is if we went down this route, what are we looking at for breaking ground day, putting people in homes day? What kind of timeline are we looking at? I would like to see people back in their homes for next Christmas is, a personal goal. So I'm wondering if that's a possibility with this sort of process.
Well, I guess none of us kind of want to be put on the spot and be recorded as saying a certain date. But yeah, with the
That's
integrated
okay.
design,
We won't hang you.
yeah, don't hold me to this, but the integrated design process is the best chance you will have to meet a fast track timeline like that. Having everyone do different projects at different times that stresses the resources of a community so that everyone's trying to frame and roof and pour concrete at the same time is just not going to happen. So you've got to plan it out with the integrated design process. I would say that you have to reduce the complexity of the problem. So you have to find a couple of repeatable designs that the community is happy with, that they can sign off on, that then can be replicated throughout the community. So again, you're kind of given your best chance at building quickly and getting this all done at the same time rather than sequentially. And then using some sort of off-site fabrication so that you're using the resources elsewhere to manufacture these panels, whether they be floors, walls, and roofs. They can, 3,000 square foot house can be manufactured in a facility in about 3 weeks, delivered to site and erected in 6 days. So if you extrapolate that over the number of dwellings that you have to make, then you have different crews coming in, following in the back, siding, windows, finishing, that sort of stuff. So the integrated design process is going to help plan that all out and try and do one of those giant Gantt charts to work out how this is going to be implemented. But if you were to start in the fall next year for foundations, depending on how many units you're going to be building, they'd probably follow 9 months after breaking ground for completion, and 9 to 12 months, depending on the complexities.
And then, just putting my builder hat on, if I had a client who came to me today and said, I want to design and build a house, and that's just one house, custom builder, we specialize in doing this, and asked me if they could move in for Christmas, it would be very challenging. The design would have to be completed in a number of weeks. The permitting process would have to go very, very quickly. And that house would have to start construction, in the early part of the spring to guarantee occupancy for Christmas. So I just caution that a Christmas deadline is going to be very challenging, particularly at scale. And then, and I don't know what discussions you've had with Hydro and what their strategy and timing is on this. Only to note that without power in the community, even just getting started with construction is going to be challenging. And you absolutely need to make sure that your power grid and everything is back up and running at a time when houses are coming to completion. And is that a critical path item that is in play? That's maybe a bit of an open-ended question, but just something everybody needs to consider.
Yeah, I don't think we've had too much of a response from Hydro in the recent days. But we always hope to hear from them.
I do.
So-
I do have a contact that I can reach out to next week and possibly get you a little insider information. So I'll tackle that this week and set something up for next week if I can.
Well, thank you, Bob. That would be very kind.
The one-
Could you just briefly explain the CVHA labeling and how that applies?
All right, so, we went over the step code, steps 1 to 5. As Andy noted, step 5 is referred to as net zero or net zero ready. Net zero having this sort of broad definition of a house that could produce as much energy as it consumes on site, which means, in this case, generally having rooftop solar. And so the step code has their defined level of performance for net zero. CHBA, the Canadian Home Builders Association, developed a net zero label that uses the same modeling software, has chosen, some different measuring tools, if I can say that. And what we have found, building here in the Whistler area, which is the same climate zone as you guys in Lytton, so the same number of cold days, is that we're actually hitting a net zero label standard at step 4. And so there is, as Andy noted, there is going to be a lot of discussion in the next 5 or 6 years around this balance between investing in carbon in building a house versus the operational savings. And where is that sweet spot? We would suggest that sweet spot is likely in and around step 4, if not slightly lower, recognizing that at step 4, designed and modeled a certain way, step 4 house can also be net zero. But just also understand that, the two ways that things are measured are somewhat different, but the modeling software is producing a similar result. So on that note, I would encourage you not to jump to step 5 right now.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we're gonna do a change of order in the agenda as Shannon Story, who is going to speak to 8-1, is about to be evacuated. So I'd like to give Shannon the floor.
All right, so I think we'll sign off. Thanks everyone for allowing us the time to
Thank you.
inform and hopefully help you out here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and good evening. And I'm so sorry for making you change the agenda. The procedure bylaw amendment that's before you is even more timely, and my current situation gives you an example of why it's needed. As you know, I'm based in Pemberton, BC, and I just got an evacuation notice that an alert's probably going to be coming very shortly, and I need to run and go sandbag with my family. So going to present this really quickly. I'm recommending this evening that council give 3 readings to council procedure amendment bylaw number 707. That's in your council package. As council is aware, since the summer of 2020, we've been operating under a ministerial order which allowed all meetings and public hearings and committee meetings to be held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The order has now expired. However, the province has been gracious enough to bring in some new legislation under the community charter that allows municipalities to provide permanent authority to be able to hold meetings electronically, as well as hybrid meetings, should council amend their council procedure bylaw to allow it. It was really a no-brainer with Lytton. Most municipalities across BC are doing this amendment. The majority of council members don't live in, and the residents are no longer in Lytton. So when we have a huge task of rebuilding ahead of us, and I'd like to, and staff in general, make sure that Lytton Council have as many options as possible to be able to hold council meetings. Also, as I'm a current prime example, given our current environmental reality and the severe weather patterns that we've been facing across BC, and all of the road closures being a serious issue, we need to take that into consideration, unfortunately, for future meetings as well. So the proposed bylaw amendment, it's providing council and council committees the ability to hold electronic meetings as well as to hold hybrid meetings. So what I mean by that is that there would be at least one council member present in council chambers, and as many up to the rest of them can attend electronically. So again, a little hybrid. We will be doing things like the members of the public will be offered a spot in council chambers, even if it's fully electronic. The CAO/corporate officer will be there in person, and there will be, with COVID restrictions attached, allow for people to be able to view in person in council chambers. One minor amendment that I'm hoping that council can make under the bylaw that is in the package under section 2B, it said details to be included on the village website. I'm asking if council could make a minor amendment to change that to included in the notice instead of saying on the village website. I think that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have any questions? Councillor Hay?
Sorry, it's a procedural thing. When you mentioned legislation, I can see that going in, but the procedure bylaw, anything that council puts in it has to be posted for 10 days for public input before we bring it for first, second, third reading.
So it doesn't. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hay. So the rules say that it does have to, according to the public notice rules in the community charter, it has to be advertised for 2 weeks, 14 days, but that's before adoption, not before first 3 readings. So it has already been placed in the Lytton News, in the Lillooet News once, as well as in both offices, the one in Boston Bar and the one in Kamloops, as well as on our website. And the next ad will be going in next week's paper, and therefore all the public notice requirements will be done before adoption.
Super, thank you. You learn something new every day.
Are there any other questions? All in favor?
We didn't have anyone,
Aye.
no one's made the motion yet, your worship.
I'll make a motion.
We're just trying to make sure you're still awake on the beach.
So Lillian has made the motion. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Leach, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Good luck.
They say,
Okay, good luck.
Thank you, Shannon. Be safe.
Thanks all.
Now we'll go back to delegations, and so now, Noni, you're on the floor.
I just made you co-host, so you should be able to unmute now.
Is that okay now?
Yep.
You all hear okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet everybody. Is the lady at the table somebody that I might have sent a message to?
Yes,
Yes.
Is it Leslie? Is that correct?
that's correct.
Hi, Leslie. Nice to see your
Hi.
face.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Okay, so for Leslie and other people that don't know, the Two Rivers Community Service Society has a bit of a history in Lytton. We normally, in the holiday season, we would put up a Christmas tree or a holiday tree and light it up in Pocket Park. And we have traditionally stored our lights for that tree at the village maintenance center. And so naturally, they got burned up this year. So we decided that we weren't going to let that slow us down. So we kind of asked for help from some people. And it turns out that the community of Quesnel has been really very generous and very forthcoming to help out our little society, and have donated almost $1,000 worth of lights and ornaments to light up our community this winter. So we are continuing in our little committee to figure out how we can make something happen that will brighten up our community and to bring a little bit of festive spirit to the people that are still here. So we've got all these things, and we decided to look at options, because obviously Pocket Park isn't going to work. And there is no power in town. So that was kind of the issue we were working with. And we decided that we would love to have decorated the sign that says welcome to Lytton that has 3 flagpoles up by the highway. But sadly, there is no power there either, apparently, because we couldn't plug in there. So we went down and spoke with Tony, and then that day it was Tim was still there. And it turns out there is power at the sign-in center there. And they agreed that to let us take on a little bit of a project of lighting up the fence, the blue fence, using the power outage that is at the sign-in, what do you call that, your little shack there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put that up. We'll light up the fence. We'll probably tie everything down because we understand about Lytton wind, and try and light things up a little bit. I spoke with the forestry people today, and they're going to be working on their site to try and brighten things up there as well. And I think we will have enough lights and decorations that we can share with other places in the community. So the 3 resiliency centers will also be getting some ornaments and lights from us to decorate their stations at Scuppa and Siska and over West Side Hall. So I just thought to let you know that this plan is afoot in case you see us marching around doing weird things, and basically just to ask for your approval and to just hear if you have any concerns or comments that you might have about that whole idea. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah. I think it's a great idea, Noni, though.
Of course, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Noni, would you like me to share the images that you sent?
Oh, please, then they can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, let me do that in just 1 second.
We took some pictures of the site where we want to put the lights up. There you go. Okay, so past the sign, past the trailer, looking up, that little piece of green there that doesn't look like anything at all right now, that will be lit up. The fence will be lit up. And because there's the perpendicular fences holding it upright, we'll be able to make a little section in there, I think, of maybe a little scene or something like that. It should be okay. It'll be brighter anyway. Thank you.
Looks great, Noni. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, we're doing this and so much more. One day I'll tell you what we're doing. Yep.
Someone like to make a motion
Don't frighten me now, Noni.
to approve the putting up of the lights?
Counselor Harry, I'll make the motion that Noni and her band of merry people have full access to putting up their Christmas lights and where they think it'll best work.
I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion's passed. Are there any other delegations?
Thank you for that.
So are there any other, oh, sorry, where I guess we're on to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment on today's agenda?
If you would like to speak today, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you can find that by clicking reactions at the bottom of your screen and then clicking raise hand. So when it's your turn, I'll read your name and I'll ask you to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up asking you to unmute, so you just have to click that. You have 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning. At the end of the 2 minutes, your microphone will be automatically disabled. So I see the first speaker today will be Jesua Lightfoot. I will ask you to unmute now.
Good evening, everyone. I know Councillor Hay has said in the past that he was unable to see how many were attending. There's 35 in attendance tonight. And it's unfortunate the floods have slowed us down when progress seemed to be speeding up a bit. But I just have one specific item I want to draw your attention to, and that is in, I'm not sure what number it is, but it's your annual report on page 8, I believe. It's mentioned that the fire happened on June the 29th, and it's a small point, but it was June the 30th, and it's embedded in all our minds. I heard our MP Vis mention June the 29th in Parliament last week, and just a minor correction, but it does need to be looked into. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The next speaker today will be Denise OConnor. Denise, I'll ask you to unmute now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Denise OConnor, formerly from 522 Fraser Street. I just want to comment on item number 7.2 about the chief financial officer and the motion regarding property taxes. And it reads that the Village of Lytton will direct staff to communicate to property owners that the property tax notices will be reissued on December 3rd and that payment is due upon receipt. So I want to be clear, I don't object to paying property taxes, but I do object to this time of year that these are coming out. Do the property owners really need more financial burden, especially during this Christmas month? Because it's not our fault that the village burned down, and it's not our fault that the village took 5 months to figure out that taxes have to be paid. So again, I don't object to paying taxes, but I just object to the way that it's all being handled, just like so many other things since the fire. But anyways, you say the property tax will be issued. So I'm not sure how you're thinking of doing that, but in the past, it's always been sent in the mail. You say payment is due upon receipt. And so I assume that means receipt of the tax notice. Well, I'm in Kamloops today. I came here to pick up my mail for the first time in 2 months, because I've been homeless for the last 2 weeks, until about the last 2 weeks. And because I moved through 3 different communities, I kept my mail held in Kamloops here. Now in Lytton, after 5 months, there's still no postal service. Who knows when I'll get to pick up my mail next. So I guess I want to know what constitutes receipt of the tax notice. Because of the state of the current postal situation, I don't believe I'm going to be receiving my property tax notice anytime soon. And as I said, I'm not against paying taxes, but for goodness sakes, I hope you will think this through. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. If anybody else would like to speak today, please use the raise hand function, and you can find that under reactions. I'll just wait another 15 seconds here to make sure. Looks like I have Megan here. I will ask you to unmute.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's Megan Fendrich, and I had been meaning to also speak up tonight regarding the same point as Denise just mentioned, because when I had been watching council meetings in the past, although there seemed to be some confusion, it seemed to me like our property taxes were going to be waived or postponed. And so I've lost my only source of income, and I've had to really budget my money. And now to find out that my property taxes, both for my home and for my empty commercial property, will be due immediately, is really difficult. I haven't budgeted it in based on the impression that I'd had from the meetings in the past. And so I would ask definitely that the deadline not be immediate, that it be extended, and also that interest not be accrued. I think that's, I'm not sure what phrase I would use, but basically kicking us while we're down. Thank you for hearing my words.
Thank you for your comments. I believe that was the last speaker, so that completes the public comment portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held November the 10th. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes for the November 10th meeting?
I will make the motion to adopt the minutes for the Wednesday, November 10th meeting.
I will second.
Is there any discussion? Any corrections? Seeing that there's none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion's passed. There's no business arising, so we'll go to staff reports. The recovery staffing update, I will pass that on to Allison or to Ron.
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 Mr. Martucci.
Well, thank you, Worship. Just, quickly, we're continuing to build up the team to deal with recovery as we're trying to, deal with right now. The highest priority is debris removal and going through that process to look at any building, anything like that that the village will have to deal with. We brought on James Hay, a former Lillooet resident who's lived in Lytton a considerable amount of time in his career. Will be the project manager that'll take on oversight for any of the rebuilds and that'll occur within the village, and to be the oversight of all that. So he's the latest member of the team. You all met Allison, who's been on for a while. And of course, you've met Leslie, who's not on the recovery team, but is supplementing the crew of people that are trying to pull this together. So
Thank you. We're then on to 7.1B, the Chief Administrative Officer. Can I get a motion to appoint the acting Chief Administrating Officer?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That Ms. Giroux be appointed as a signing authority for the Village of Lytton's account at the Scotiabank effective December 1st. Could I get the motion?
I'll make
the motion.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion that Mr. Martucci be removed as the signing authority for the Village of Lytton's accounts at Scotiabank? I'll make the motion.
I'll make that motion. I'll make that
You can
motion.
Go ahead. Yeah. I'll second.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That Ms. Giroux, the acting CAO, be authorized to sign approved contracts on behalf of the Village of Lytton effective December 1st.
Councillor Hay, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that the council appoint Mr. Ron Martucci.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Yes. That the council appoint Mr. Ron Martucci as the municipal approving officer for the Village of Lytton effective December 1st.
Councillor Hay, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead. Robert seconded it. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we're on to 7.2. Chief Financial Officer, the statement of financial interest. Would you like to speak to it?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an annual report that's required to be filed with the province each year. They call it SOFI, or Statement of Financial Information. And so it's before everyone. You can see the contents, including statement of guarantees, statement of severance payments, as well as remuneration exceeding the thresholds established by legislation. And also the last piece is our largest aggregate payments exceeding $25,000. Just to give some background on the one, the ComCom, there I received a number of questions on that one, so I may as well address that before the question comes. So ComCom is the IT provider to the village, and the majority of these monies were due to the capital projects. SCADA, I believe it's called, and the water project, right? So it's not, it's kind of misleading when you see ComCom. It's really not IT per se, it's a water project. So yes, and so this report needs to go to the province. It's actually overdue because of fire, and needs to be executed by both the mayor and the financial officer. So I think it's a brief report, and certainly open it up to questions.
So, are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Someone needs to make the motion, your worship.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Can I get a motion to adopt the statement of financial information?
Or motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we'll go on to 7.2B, the property tax report. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, I won't go through it in great detail, but you have before you the staff report relative to property taxes, and this is after meetings and discussions with the province. Obviously, the property taxes are legislatively required, so we do not have the ability to waive or forgive them in any way, shape, or form. And so there's been a delay in terms of our financial rebuild and our ability to actually recreate these notices. So I certainly apologize that it's not the best time of the year to be issuing these notices. There's multiple, obviously, events happening right now that add that. So in terms of clarity, I'm just looking at the motion, and one of the residents was posing an issue about accrued interest, and I think if you read the report, the province has agreed to allow us to waive late penalties and interest on the 2021 property taxes. But if you read the motion, what it says is interest will accrue on any unpaid 2020 balances. And what that refers to, if you go back to the report, there was an oversight that occurred in 2020 where late penalties and interest were not applied to those property owners that were late. So we're doing that now. And again, that's legislatively required. So for those folks that can't pay the property tax notice on receipt, you're not going to be charged interest or penalty on it, but it will have to be paid. And there was another question that we heard about today in terms of the homeowner grant, and just to give some background for those folks on the call, is that you have until December the 31st, 2022 to apply for your 2021 homeowner grant. So please be sure to do that. It's $770 per property, so it's well worth your time and effort to take that on. So I think that's my comments in addition to the report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any questions? The December 3rd date, how did we choose that?
The way we came up with that is we're frantically, probably is the best word to say, doing this financial rebuild for many reasons. And so I instructed the folks that are doing it to do that piece. as quickly as possible. We had hoped to do it last meeting and knowing that Christmas time was coming and the different aspects, but you know, the end of this fiscal year is upon us as well. So we have to do it and get it into the system.
Well, I'd like to apologize to the residents for creating the confusion regarding taxes. The council was told after the fire that we could waive the taxes, and we did. And subsequently, we learned that we couldn't do that. And yeah, I'd like to apologize for creating the confusion.
Ditto from Councillor Hay.
So, are there any further questions on this this motion?
I have the same question that I had before. Is there no way that we can assist our residents with this, Terry? I had asked about this before, and I don't think I really got a sort of clear answer as to why we couldn't do some form of assistance.
Councillor Gray, so are you referring to financial assistance or
Yes.
time pay or financial assistance?
There's no mechanism.
There's no mechanism to do that, and I'm not sure what to say beyond that. I really don't. I mean, we had numerous meetings with the province trying to find a mechanism and explore it, and not to complain about the province, but they were very clear to us that there was no mechanism and nothing in the legislation that would allow it.
When it comes to the actual date of payment, is there anything that we can do to assist homeowners in that regard?
But as I identified, the motion, I believe, is to acknowledge that there's no penalty or interest to be applied. So notwithstanding, the motion is that it's due upon receipt. There's really no teeth to that, in the sense that if they choose or cannot pay until January, February, or June of next year, there's no financial impact to them.
So no penalties, so no interest will be added to the tax bill from the 3rd of December on, right?
I just want to be specific that it's relative to the 2021.
Right.
So there are property owners that still owe for 2020.
Right.
That interest will keep accruing.
Right.
Right.
So if I may, basically it's for finance to get the work done by December 3rd. So if people can't pay until January, February, they're not going to pay interest. But the work, I think, was what you're asking for, is direction to have the button pushed for December 3rd. It's not necessarily that it has to be paid by Christmas Day or.
I think you're correct. Like I said, the way we as staff created the motion is that it was due upon receipt, but there's no financial penalty for not doing that.
Essentially, yeah.
Right. Councillor Hay.
Good question. Councillor Hay, homeowners grant, but staff always used to do it for the residents when they walked in the office. I wouldn't even know how to do it.
So the provincial government changed that last year, so it
Did they?
actually is out of the hands of the municipal government. You actually do it through
So
the
I'm gonna
province.
learn how to do something.
You have to go to the provincial government website and do it on there.
Is it? Okay, thank you.
So what we could offer to do as staff is work with Urban Systems to have the link posted on the.
Sure.
And I thought we could also put some information to communicate back out to the residents about the homeowners grant.
Great.
Okay, so we could put the link for the homeowners grant on there as well. But it's the province that now collects that, so it got taken right out of the hands of the municipal government.
So I'll make the motion that the Village of Lytton receive the 2021 property tax report. Direct staff to communicate to property owners that the property tax notices will be reissued on December 3rd. That payment is due upon upon receipt. Further, all checks received from property owners that are on hand will be deposited by December 3rd, 2021. Lastly, interest will continue to occur on any unpaid 2020 balances until they're fully paid.
Councillor Hay, second the motion.
Can I just make one more comment, Worship? I'm to address the other comments. I forget the name of the lady that spoke, but we are going to be mailing these notices, notwithstanding they were mailed pre-fire. So everybody should have received them, but in their, evacuation, they probably don't have them. So I've instructed them to remail them so that it'll go to their mailboxes and certainly if you don't receive them, please contact us and we'll be happy to email you or mail to another address, whatever you need, we'll do that for you.
Darn.
We'll let you know.
Is there any further discussion?
Your worship, just as a point, I think, one of the issues that, certainly Terry has, since he's come on, has tried to grapple with is the financial situation of the village, pre-fire, during fire, post. And, I think the provincial government's view is that, first off, it's immaterial. You really don't have the power to waive. No community does, no council does. It's just part of the legislation. You have to collect taxes. The difficult part here is that even with the programs and even with the provincial government providing, as we saw, a great deal of money for all these programs, the Red Cross is still provincial money coming through to the Red Cross for residents. The village still has to be a going concern and still has to be able to function. Under the normal program, things like DMAF, some of these the recovery monies still requires 20%. So those could be really big numbers. And so I think the fear is that, even if you have something, it may still get taken up, long before this is all said and done. And so I believe, having sat in the room, I know it was council's intention to be, to try to help its citizens as much as possible. But, clearly, your hands are tied and you didn't know that. And most people wouldn't at this point in time. So I just wanted to, at least express that.
I asked the questions because I wanted the residents to know that this council has tried to help them out as much as possible.
We've spent many hours on this particular issue in and of itself.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any report from the corporate officer? No, we don't have an economic development. Public Works, the water recovery update report is on page 21. I assume that we are sort of taking a few steps backwards, seeing as the debris pond is filled up with debris. For the residents to know that during the rainstorm, a tremendous amount of rocks have flowed down Lytton Creek, and they filled up the debris pond, which was approximately 40 feet in length and 30 feet wide and 4 to 5 feet deep. And the rocks are 2 feet over the top. It damaged the controls. It washed away the gabion baskets in the first debris pond. And so we're working as quickly as possible to empty out the debris pond, to reestablish the water intake, and then to commence with starting our testing program over again. And yeah, that's where we're at on it. Okay, do we need to make a motion to file and receive the water recovery report? It's good, okay. We've done 8.1. So we're on to 9.1, incoming correspondence for action. The Gold Companies Community Society request for a letter of support by November 25th of 2021.
I could speak to this.
Yes.
So the grant application that gets submitted to a BC Chamber of Commerce, actually, they want you to talk in there about how you have partnerships with your municipality, but you actually don't require a letter of support to attach to the grant application. So I did correspond with the author of this letter last week to explain that to them. However, just for the purposes of believing that the council does support it, I think it's important to go ahead and we will provide a support letter if council feels that that would be necessary.
Would someone like to make the motion for a letter?
I'll motion.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
Can we backdate the letter?
Sure.
Friendly amendment, Councilor. It's supposed to be by the 25th of November. We're already sitting here at the 1st of December. We can backdate it to the 25th.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. There's no correspondence list, reports from the mayor and councilors. Yeah, I've just been busy trying to coordinate a number of the activities in the town. Had some discussions with parliamentary secretaries and a number of other government officials. And I hope to have some information to release in the very near future. And that's going to be my report. Councillor Leach.
Well, thanks. Just a couple of things. I just want to say a couple of thank yous. First of all, thank you to all the volunteers who help bring food and supplies into our communities, whether it's the Lytton area or Boston Bar area. Thank you for all the efforts with all the road closures. It was much appreciated, all the help that was needed. Also, big thank you out to all those people working on the highways. Hopefully they'll have them open soon so we can get around. So thank you to them. It's been a couple of really challenging couple of weeks here with floods, road closures, power outages. One of them even happened during the first Citizens Advisory Committee for me. But the meeting still went on. I just continue working on the Leadership and Policy Recovery Committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee. So that's it for me.
Councillor Hay.
Councilor Hay, nothing to report tonight. You just get back.
Councillor Gray.
Nothing to report right now. Thanks.
Okay, reports from committees of council and commissions, the Citizens Advisory Committee. Robert.
Okay. So the first one was the November 22nd meeting. That was our first meeting that we had. And from that meeting, it was decided that the meetings will be held on the first and third Wednesdays of each month at 4 p.m. The committee adopted the terms of reference, and we also talked about some future agenda topics that included the building bylaw, the district energy system, short-term recovery, and safer home standards. And then the second committee meeting was today, December 1st. We heard from two speakers, Mr. Jensen and Mr. Deeks, who provided details about the Building Act and the energy step codes. Committee members were given the opportunity to answer questions to them, so that went well. The Leadership and Policy and Recovery Select Committee, the November 24th meeting was postponed to December 1st. So that was today. I gave an update on proposing a new terms of reference for the committee. I will be requesting a meeting with the new CAO, Leslie, and the recovery manager to get direction where this committee is going in 2022. Also, the committee made a recommendation today, and that is moved by Chair Leach that the committee recommend that council appoint the following list of alternate members for the Citizens Advisory Committee as of December 1st, 2021. Cleanne Coughlin, Angela Brown, and Karen Kimball. So I will need a motion at council tonight for that.
Councillor Hay, I shall make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and is there any further discussion on that? I don't hear anything, so we will vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is my report.
So can I get a motion to receive and file the reports?
Councillor Hay, make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're on to new business, that the council adopt the 2020 annual report as presented. Are there any questions?
It says as presented, so it should be as amended.
Yes. So yes, Mayor Fullerman, if you can say as amended.
As
for
amended,
June
sir.
30th.
2020 annual report be adopted as amended. And the amendment was the June 29th date should have been June 30th. We missed that. Is there any questions? Hearing none.
Did we have a motion?
Yeah. Does someone wish to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead, Lillian. I'll second. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The Citizens Advisory Committee, the alternate chairperson.
Yeah, I can speak on that. So the first meeting we had, I actually had a power outage, but I was able to operate on battery power and continue the meeting. But because of our current situation with all these emergencies, and well, I mean, Shannon's story today, being evacuated and stuff, makes me think that maybe we should have a backup person, like an alternate chairperson, just in case I'm unavailable because of the current situation. In reality, we don't really know when our power is going to go out again and when the next storm is going to hit. So that's why I brought this forward with a motion. I'll bring the motion forward and then we can have a discussion if you like. I make the motion that council appoints Allison as the alternate chairperson of the Citizens Advisory Committee in the event of the absence of Councillor Leach.
Because it's a committee of council, I'm sorry, it has to be a council.
It has to be a councillor, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay, who would like to be? I don't think, no offense, Councillor Gray, but you're in the same town as I am, so we might run into the same situation.
Yep, exactly.
So, I mean, it's happened once already.
Does that mean all eyes are focusing on me now?
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Process of elimination.
Councillor Hayes has accepted the position as an alternate chairperson.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I'll make sure you're hooked up every time.
Bring him a generator by helicopter.
No, that's okay, you can do it once in a while. So I guess do we have a seconder on that?
I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. So we're on to 12.3, the proposed unmet needs committee draft terms of reference. Allison Post is the recovery manager. Would you like to speak to that?
I'm happy to, sure. The terms of reference have been developed with myself, Leslie, and Shannon Story. I believe that they represent, reflect rather the wishes of the community with respect to the Unmet Needs Committee. And the composition as the Unmet Needs Committee, or as the community has let us know what they would like to see in terms of the purpose and the responsibilities of that committee.
Okay, would someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion on that, that the Village of Lytton establish an unmet needs committee as per the proposal terms of reference to act as an advisory body to the council for council in regard to issues of needs highlighted during the rebuild of the community.
Counselor Hayes, second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next motion is that the council remove the gift card donations from the terms of reference from the Citizens Advisory Committee and assign them to the Unmet Needs Committee now that it's established.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we've done 12.4. So we're on to number 13, which is a calendar of events. We have the leadership and policy for the Recovery Select Committee. That's on December the 8th. We also have the regular council meeting on December the 8th. What isn't listed here is on December the 9th is the community town hall at 7 p.m. You can check the website to access that meeting. On December the 15th, the Citizens Advisory Committee will have a meeting. On the 22nd, the Leadership and Policy for Recovery Select Committee will have a meeting. And the December 22nd regular council meeting is canceled.
Would you wish to also consider the December 22nd leadership meeting as a council meeting?
Would you like to cancel that meeting, Robert?
Sure, sounds good. That gives us more time to change the terms of reference anyway.
Okay, so the December 22nd LPR Select Committee meeting is canceled as well. So
Your worship,
yes.
I just was wondering with the Unmet Needs Committee, is there a date that you are thinking of for that first meeting for that group?
I'll refer that to Allison.
What I suggested was we post on the website for any members who may be interested in, or any community members who may be interested in participating on the Unmet Needs Committee. And then setting a date to at that point, once we have had a chance to meet with all the prospective members of the committee.
Thank you. Councilor Hay.
Counselor Hay, December 22nd, 2021 regular council meeting, it's already on the schedule. Do we need a motion to cancel it?
If you don't mind me popping in there, I believe there was a motion earlier in the year. That's why I picked up on it. But I can double check for you and let you know on December.
Thank you.
Okay.
So until further notice, it's not going to be canceled then, right? Okay, so the December 22nd regular council meeting is not canceled.
If you could make a motion tonight to do both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, it's not like you don't need to rescind the original.
Okay. So then the December 22nd regular council meeting is canceled.
If somebody moves and seconds it.
So. Motion now?
Yes, we're making a motion.
The suggestion is you do it now so that it can get publicized.
Just one.
I will second. I'll make the motion that the December 22nd regular council meeting be canceled.
And the leadership.
And the leadership and policy for recovery select committee meeting be canceled.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
I'm just wondering if we could actually move the meeting to the 15th instead of canceling it. It seems like we have an awful lot of decisions that need to be done. I mean, we should be getting builders in place for next year. If we want to have anybody actually build anything, we need to lock them into place before year end. So shouldn't we be having more meetings and not less?
Which builders are you referring to for?
Oh,
which
I don't know,
phase?
the builders for the houses, the builders for the buildings, builders, contractors, people who make things.
Thank you, Worship. The insurance companies will be getting their own builders and would not want us to in any way, shape or form interfere with between them and their clients. So I'm not sure in terms of dealing with the rebuild of the corporate assets. We're working through our insurance companies and we'll be able to do that. But the village has no say in who actually comes in to build the homes for the private property within the village. Potentially, I guess you could advertise, you could, look around, but we have no role to play in that.
Well, considering that it's not extremely amusing, I'm going to have to go out here on a limb and say we had actually discussed about working this as a complete, everybody works together, we get in multiple builders, we do this as a community. We had discussed this a long time ago. And the fact that I'm bringing it up is because I would rather see us actually building something next year than, I don't know, maybe telling people they're going to have to wait another year.
But we have no say in the building. That's between the resident and their builder.
I understand that's between the residents and their builders, but if we try something like an integrated design process, which we just learned about, maybe we could actually get the community working together and get everybody working together and get something done.
Councilor Hay.
Councilor Hay, the reason I wanted to get on to discuss it. Next meeting, the 8th of December, then the one after that will be the 12th of January. That is a lot of time in between. And I'm not against, I don't know if any of my fellow councilors are planning on traveling over the festive season. But we always have the opportunity to call special meetings to deal with things. As long as we're, going to be in town. But to me, that from the 8th of December to 12th of January, it's a big gap. Yeah, and sorry, not for council to make decisions, council to hear reports, but I'm sure something's hopefully gonna happen between the 8th of December to the 12th of January. Nice to hear. That went over like a lead balloon, eh?
Yes, it did.
So you could, it was moved, your resolution was moved and seconded, was it, for the December 22nd? You could hold your regular council meeting on December 15th in the evening, if you want to do that.
Oh.
Or the 20, or rescind your resolution.
My concern is the first one. If we have dedicated staff here putting together a team, the next thing we're gonna hear from what the team's done is gonna be 6 weeks. That bothers me.
Yep.
Because the team may need some support from council that we can give them, and we've been on hold for 5 months and some things, and we're getting our feet in the start blocks again, and the thing is, I just don't wanna see. Well, we could have got all that stuff done if we had a meeting.
So you're, it doesn't matter to staff, so this isn't staff's decision, this is council's
I
decision.
understand that.
So what would you suggest for a date, and then we can make sure that that gets publicized?
I don't have a problem, sorry, that's what I was trying to discuss with my fellow councilors. I don't have a problem calling a special meeting. You let us know you need us, then we come, but it's hard to let me know to come here if I'm someplace that doesn't have a telephone.
Okay, so we are gonna cancel the December 22nd meeting. When staff needs us, they will call me and I'll call a special meeting. And then we'll inform the councilors and the general public that meeting will occur.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
You note that? Okay. So now we are on the closed meeting, items to be released from the closed meeting, and these are for information. It's moved by myself and Councilor Leach that the following items be removed from the closed session. Moved by Councilor Leach, seconded by Mayor Polderman, that the Village of Lytton enter into a tripartite transfer agreement with Lytton First Nation and the province of BC for the St. Bartholomew Hospital lands as per the tripartite transfer agreement as presented. This was actually done back in June, well before the fire, but we just want to make sure that the general public knows that. It's the other thing is that Councilor Gray, seconded by Councilor Leach, that the Village of Lytton seek funding for Emergency Management BC for a critical incident debrief for both council and the Citizens Advisory Committee, with details determined once funding is secured. We're working on that. It was moved by Councilor Gray and seconded by Mayor Polderman that the Village of Lytton requests staff research funding for volunteer options to enable the village to host public meetings regarding the new building bylaw and provide expert resources to answer residents' questions. We're working on that as well. And that'll be happening relatively soon. It's moved by Mayor Polderman and seconded by Councilor Leach that council requests staff put together a plan for the development of and public input into the new building zoning and servicing bylaws. And now we will be entering into a closed session, so I want to thank the public for attending the meeting. Can I get a motion that the council close the meeting to the public to discuss two matters related to the Community Charter Section 91A and C personnel, and two matters related to the Community Charter, section 90-1G legal.
And I have one more, sorry,
Sorry.
Mayor Polderman.
Okay,
There's
go ahead.
one more communities charter section I need to add, and it's under 91J, freedom of information and protection of privacy. That was sort of added at the last couple of days. I'll
Okay,
add that in the motion.
thank you. There was a freedom of information request. So is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll need a couple of minutes to